I would now like to ask all keynote speakers to return to the stage to take questions from the floor. Those wishing to ask a question, please raise your hand, and when provided with the microphone, kindly provide your name, your organisation, to whom you'd like to address your question to, and your question. Mr. Ali Mubarak will moderate this session.
Please, let's start the questions. Raise your hand. Any questions? It's a free of charge, guys. Here we go. Dr. Osama.
Osama Jamali, advisor to the chairman of the ACK. Being interested in education, I have a general question and a specific question. We talk about culture, and we mentioned the culture. There's a thrill to taking risks, and somehow we have to create awareness as to the consequences of these risks. So I don't know if any of you can address introducing this subject into our educational system. I mean, how much of this is provided at primary school level, high school level, etc., to change the culture? The specific question I have is for Abdulaziz Deshti. That is, when you have an accident, it's not a total loss. You can salvage something by learning. So these beautiful examples you gave us, have they been turned into case studies that can be introduced into our educational system at the university level and things like that? Have they been translated into case studies? Thank you.
I can take the second one. Because I work heavily with the insurance industry, and we do study these incidents very thoroughly, and we learn from them, and recommendations come out. But as far as educational, universities or high schools, I doubt it very much. But with KPC, what they did, when they had the two incidents, they made recommendations, and they said this recommendation is not only applicable to the site that had the incident, they made it applicable throughout the oil and gas industry in Kuwait. And they put a committee to audit, make sure the recommendations that came from the two tragic incidents implemented throughout the oil sector. But as far as going beyond that, no, I think the knowledge is staying inside the oil and gas sector. But maybe we have here our academic people from the ACK, they can.
I mean, these things do become case studies eventually if they're investigated properly. So usually, in many parts of the world, the regulator will investigate and publish a report, and then it kind of like ends up being part of a case study of in education, like some of the NEBOSH things. But your second point about risk is very important, because man learns and develops through taking risk. I mean, you can knock the space program, the American space program, and Chinese space program, and think it's a waste of money. But the reality is, it may be you can't underestimate the importance of man taking risk. So historically, health and safety people have always seen risk as a negative thing, something to be kind of like eliminated or whatever, and I think that's wrong. I much prefer the thing like the ISO 31000, which is this risk can be positive and negative. If my children had not taken risks, they would not grow up and be independent. And I strongly believe that people have to take risks, but you need to have a system in place to evaluate those risks and control them. Businesses throughout take financial risks, they take all sorts of risks in markets, business risks, everyone accepts that, but in health and safety, not everyone does. And I think we have to have a similar attitude to that, but control it, like management of change, risk assessment, things like that. That's what risk assessment is about, looking at the opportunities as well as the controlling it properly. So if it's managed properly, we can do a lot more. Yeah, just. Do you want to talk? No, I've spoken too much. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Others? Any question?
Just nice to meet you.
My question is, I am Iqbal Zaidi. My question is it obligatory on the part of the companies to have HS department? And if a company has no HS department, will that company be penalized by the government? Thank you.
I don't think there's any regulations. Each company has their own structure, the way they look at safety. Some of them put it directly under operation, which is, I'm against. But and the K companies, you can see some of them, they have a risk management group, which looks at all risks, as mentioned earlier, like enterprise management, and HSE is part of it. And some of them have it in a different way. They have a corporate HSE department, and which looks at rules, regulations, training, and they have also HSE units under the assets to use them into the safety audits, permit to work. I don't think and I'm pretty sure there is no law saying, why don't you have an HSE department? Because each organization looks at it differently.
My name is Mohammed Abbas. I'm a senior safety engineer from the Kuwait Gulf Oil Company. Let me just correct the information here. No, the Ministry of Social Affairs currently is enforcing to ask all the companies to recruit one safety officer, also a first aid and medic. And now they are struggling, for example, to find out or to outsource and approve the training centers to deliver safety courses for those companies. In addition to that, the Ministry of Social Affairs right now, they are enforcing companies to apply insurance upon their employees. So it is there.
It is there,
The law
yeah,
is there. Yes,
but not
yes,
as a
yes.
department. His question was that, do you have to have an HSE department?
Yes, yes.
But you have
it
to
is
have
now.
an officer,
A part
yes.
of the HSE, of course, you need, for example, to have the manpower, and then you can, for example, start up with. So the law is there with the Ministry of Social Affairs.
That could be specific to Kuwait, but from Bahrain, we have a requirement in Bahrain. If you employ 50 or more, you have a full-time safety practitioner. But also, you need not a department, you need a health and safety committee, which is normally should be chaired by a senior manager from an organization. That committee put the strategy and the plans to ensure that you have a health and safety program.
Do you want that as well? You're going to sing? Yeah.
No, actually, there should be each and every industry, for example, there should be a safety department and safety engineering that. But the problem also, again, the ministry or some of the employees of the government from the public authority of, social affairs, even when they come, they annoy us because they are not educated. So they have to learn in order to supervise. Otherwise, they will give us, some ridiculous comments. Thank you.
Question.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Hamza Taqi. I'm from Knowledge Consulting. And my question basically relates to your opinion regarding the culture. Is it because we tend to be more positive thinking and we say, Yalla khalliha ala Allah, we will not have accident, and we shy away from, putting these, procedure and policies in place and implementing better measure for health and safety?
Again, I refuse to say our culture is the reason. Culture has nothing to do with it. You enforce culture. We use the DuPont example. That was a culture. I don't buy that because I grew up in Kuwait. I raised in Kuwait. I don't accept any of these. I have good work ethics and I respect work ethics. Safety is part of your work ethic. It's nothing outside. But I do understand what you say because I don't know any Kuwaiti family that they haven't lost a dear person to a car accident, and yet you always hear it, you know, either it's the other guy turned against him. They don't think about what they did wrong as far as speeding belt, or they say, it's God's will. But God doesn't tell you to go kill yourself either. So.
Question?
I think there is, yeah. No, I just want to add a little bit here. You know, you go to big organizations and you see the workers when they enter that gate. Now, they remember all the safety measures. There is like this switch in the head that you put it on when you enter the gate and you switch it off when you leave. You drive around and you see guys driving with their kids in their lap. I had a video, in fact, Masouma, who put it on the laptop, said to me, this is frightening, so I didn't show it. It was actually a shot of youth in our road that reflects the culture that we live. I'm sorry to say, but it is there. You cannot really have two-faced culture, one in the industry and one at home. It's something that you have to live and practice. And our religious, in fact, encourage that. I'm not a strictly religious person, but, من أماط الأذى عن الآخرين في الشارع يعتبر من تعاليمنا الإسلامية من إماطة الأذى. بالتالي, it is, taking care of yourself and others. It's part of our Islamic culture. Why we don't practice it, I leave it to you to answer.
Do you want to have a go?
I think this is, excuse me, just to comment, just to have my share, just, okay.
We're coming to you.
I think it's not, this is nothing called with culture, What do we mean? A culture of carelessness, for example? This is no culture. For example, 10 years ago, do everybody carrying this iPhone? Or this is a new culture to Kuwait? Culture has to be enforced, okay? There is nothing to do with culture. This is law and regulation. Either or can we be a society of chaos, for example? No. We have to have a list what to have to do and not to do. Once this is enforced, culture will be made already. Thank you.
Hi. I'm actually a senior instructor in ACK, and my job is I'm just a business instructor, okay? But what I thought was very interesting is this is for Engineer Dashti, that when you were talking about the report, you talked about a non-blaming report. And you just kind of glossed over it. And I thought this was actually one of the most interesting things, because surely people sometimes are scared of pointing out things which are not, don't cover health and safety. And I think that this is a very important thing, because if you say, if there is a non-blaming culture, then that changes it. That changes the whole situation completely. And I don't think this is specific to Kuwaiti culture, Gulf culture. You just got to see the media, international media, that there is, in the world as a whole, there's definitely a blaming culture, pointing the finger at people for having, blaming it on one person or an organization or a group, rather than looking at where the root problem was. But I thought it was very interesting that you just said, oh, non-blaming culture, as if that was something very easy. When to me, that's a contributory factor to the problem, and that is nothing to do with any country or nationality or religion or whatever. It's a worldwide problem. Okay.
Well, I do have this habit that I always think I'm going to go over. I've done a lot of conferences, and I always speed up. I can't control myself. I always I go through this, but it is important and it is difficult, and we're spending a lot of energy this year and KGOC on improving that, on making people comfortable to report errors and near misses. And because it is important, we need to learn from those before we get to these ugly ones. But it is not easy, and you're right, it's a human nature, not the Kuwaiti culture. Just go back to the culture. I was in a car accident outside University of Miami. I was on a stretcher in the hospital. Policeman approached me. He says, "Could you sign this?" I said, "What is it?" He says, "Your seatbelt ticket." Guess what? I wore seatbelt since then. You enforce the culture. It's not, that's an example. It says you enforce the law, it changes the culture.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. My name's Dennis. I'm a lead safety engineer for a project management company for KOC. I just want to touch on the issue of culture. We have something like 2,000 almost completely uneducated people who are desperate for the job, who will do absolutely anything they're asked to do. How do we instill a safety culture in them? I mean, it saddens me because I end up as a judge or a policeman on site, and what I should be a mentor and a teacher. It's very, very difficult to get a safety culture instilled at the lowest level. Have you any suggestions on how to do that?
One way that I prefer it when we handling projects is we tell the owners of the project is to audit, and also to hold them responsible. Not the contractor. We did stop a couple of projects, KOC. I used to audit all oil sector from my position at KPC, and I tell them, "Why did you stop the job?" Because you want me to stop the project? Because yeah, you stopped the project. And and the other thing is to include the contractor record as part of the company's record, because they go in front of their board and says, "Yes, we had one incident, and maybe 3 contractors were dead that week," and so to help include that in the record as if it's the same. Your contractor is your record, and that's the best thing I can.
I think that's a question that, you need a lot to answer it, but just to summarize, there are, when you talk to contractor management, you have that problem always by the type of caliber people that you end up with on site. So you need to talk about planning, and you need to talk about have a proper plan before they come to the site. But when they are on site as well, I find from experience that if you go to their level, try to understand their problems, try to communicate with them, make them listen to them, make them feel they are important, whatever they feel about the job, they will have that ownership and feel that they are important, and they will react positively to your system and procedure. If you just start, policing and, taking people outside the site because they violated safety rules, you are, as you said, you are just being in a policing function. It is a long process that big organizations invest in, and you need to train the contractors because you're seen as a partner in raising their health and safety. And if they have, as a contractor management, if they have your standard, your expectation, before they come to the site, they should have done at least some work.
Okay, I guess there is something.
I mean, I'll just have another kind of think about that. As Hassan said, it's a long and difficult route because it's kind of entrenched, isn't it? But there's kind of there's several models around this which explain the complexity of developing a positive safety culture. And culture is one of those nebulous, woolly things that's difficult to think. But part of it is competence, getting competent people in there, training, education, all the rest of it. That's interesting, making sure they get the instructions. But part of it is what's often termed control, which is making sure that everyone absolutely knows what's expected of them, that they're held accountable, which kind of is a dynamic which is held against a no-blame culture as well. But people still have to be accountable. They're responsible. You follow through with discipline. You supervise properly, and so on. Then there's this getting people involved, and sometimes that's done through safety committees, getting them to help in risk assessments, which may depend on education, but getting them actually involved in the safety process. Currently, they're probably right at the end of it, and they probably feel like if they don't do their job or don't do any job, they'll get sacked because there'll be somebody else to take their place. So that has to kind of come from top management. They have to be committed. So, you know, you are rare there. You're probably thinking, you know, I want to change this culture, but it may be that others in your organization think we can get another person in to do this job. And from the top, it's just sending mixed messages. So sometimes it's getting the message right from the top all the way down, which takes years to change. And also, people won't believe you either. You know, the contractors you get in will probably feel like, yeah, they say that, but, you know, I'm out the door as soon as I do anything wrong. So it's very complex. To change a culture. You need many interventions, and I find that it can be destroyed in a moment as well. Take years to develop, and then a new manager comes in with the old attitude and the whole thing falls apart as well. So you need internal discipline as well to check that kind of attitude, say this is not acceptable. So it is very complex, no one's denying that. I mean, fair play to you for actually trying to do something from the inside. I mean, I know they don't have any gun laws here, but, you know, maybe you should get one, you know, change it internally. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, but you know what I mean. Okay. I'll stop.
Okay, I think we'll stop the questions now. And if you have any question afterwards, you can just deal with them later. Yeah. Thank you, everybody.